I remember a camp a couple of years ago, you told me a funny story about running into Toni Iommi in Asia.
Oh, yeah. So I was in the Navy in a SEAL platoon on a ship. The ship pulls into Singapore. We go out to do what guys are going to do in a Liberty port, which is go out and get drunk, walk around, go to the bars. And I'm walking down the street and I see a giant banner by the Hard Rock Cafe that says Black Sabbath. Like Toni Iommi's just looking at me because I'm only 4 feet from him, and he's looking at me kind of like smiling, like, why is there this crazy white dude here in Singapore that clearly knows every lyric to every song, and he's going nuts. And then the show ended, and because I grew up going to concerts, I knew that, there's a backstage somewhere and there's a back exit, and that's where he's going to leave. And so I left and scrambled around and climbed over the fence and got to the backstage and saw the limo and was like, okay, here we go.
Attribute the success.
Hey, what's going on? Welcome to Trying Not to Die. All right, on this episode, we are joined by the famous Jocko Willink. We talk about mindset, we talk about overcoming issues, we dive into some music, a couple great Black Sabbath stories. It's a good one, and I think it's a side of Jocko that not everyone has seen, so I hope you enjoy. Jocko, welcome.
Thanks for having me, man.
Hey, thank you. Now, we like to start every podcast with a bit of fill in the blank. So if you wouldn't mind, would you fill in the blank? That is, to me, trying not to die means what?
Trying to live, I guess. Try not to die is try to do smart things that won't get you killed.
Yeah.
I think that's a pretty good overall general principle to have in life, is to try not to die.
Sure. Yeah, no,
so I like
think
it.
So. What's like in your like day to day, like what is your, I know you're famous for waking up, you do the 4:30 wake up and that's your, how you get after it. What do you do first thing when you open your eyes?
Get out of bed, brush my teeth, go put my clothes on, go work out.
So you're a right out of bed workout guy?
That's what you got to do.
Okay. You're not like a cup of coffee?
No, I don't. I usually don't even, I just drink water when I'm working out. I don't eat or drink anything before a workout, unless there are cases where if I'm supremely tired, I might take a pre-workout or something, but I got to be pretty tired to do that. I got to be feeling pretty bad. And then I'll do a pre-workout, and pre-workout will, get you going. And I've never done like drugs before other than caffeine and alcohol. And so, when I take pre-workout, yeah.
You get fired up.
It definitely, it moves me.
Yeah. It's funny because Drexler and I, we've known each other for like 20 something years. And he was one of the first guys that in my life that was ever on that, like, get up at 4 or 5 in the morning. Like, he would be like, I would text him like 7 o'clock at night and he's like, I'm going to bed. And then I'd get a text at 5 in the morning and he's like up and about. Where did you land? How did you come to start doing that?
I've always been focused on going to sleep earlier. Like, mentally, it's helped me because I can deal from depression or anxiety. And I feel going to sleep earlier has always helped me with all of that. And then waking up when no one else is up, I feel I get a lot accomplished between the hours of 4 to 7.
I recently was, I was chatting I do this like men's development group and we were talking about there's a Japanese saying, it's called yatori. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but it's the art of finding space, and a lot of it is to do with that kind of time management of like deliberately either like arrive to a meeting 10 minutes early so you can like have that space before going right into something, or getting up at 4:30 or 5. And I just think it's so, I've had so much benefit of that, just having that ability to have that buffer to the day.
Yeah. It's a good way to get control over things that you don't really control. And I've had this discussion with people about going to the airport. So going to the airport, you see people freaking out in the TSA line, like, I got to get through. And that's because they showed up a little bit late. I never freak out in the airport because I show up early enough. I 100% am going to be on my flight. And I don't go crazy. I'm not there 3 hours early, but, so taking control and showing up a little bit early allows you to not have to freak out because things are beyond your control.
Let me ask you a question, Jocko. kind of the way we grew up. I always played sports. I don't know if you did too. And, you know, again, going to sleep early and being respectful and training all my life. And I played college sports. You know, I feel like there's a big void in like strong male leaders right now. And a lot of guys look to you to fill that void.
Yeah, I think that the idea that men are becoming weak, I know a lot of really awesome dudes that I would call to help me if I needed them, and they'd answer the call. And I see, you know, I've got kids myself, and I see a lot of the younger generations the same way. Like, they're growing up, they're lifting weights, they're running, they're doing cool stuff, they're doing jiu-jitsu. I mean, I have a jiu-jitsu gym. It's filled with kids that are learning jiu-jitsu, you know?
That's amazing.
Yeah, and I know I don't have the only jiu-jitsu gym. There's tons of jiu-jitsu gyms. There's kids training everywhere. My kids wrestle. You go to wrestling tournaments, there's thousands of kids wrestling. You go to the state tournament in California, it is an insane thing to go to. And, you know, but people ask me stuff, but I think they're just trying to get a little guidance on, hey, what works well, what doesn't work well? Is there anything I should look out for? Hey, you ever been in a tough spot like this before? Whatever that this is. And generally speaking, yeah, if you're a human, you grow up, you're going to go through things that are going to be tough, whether it's you got dumped by the girl, whether it's one of your friends got killed in a drunk driving accident, or whatever, or your parents or your grandparents or your dog, you lost your job, you didn't get the job, you didn't get into the school. Like, that's just life. Yeah. And so do sometimes people need a little bit of guidance to get through that stuff? Sure, they do. And usually the guidance is pretty straightforward, which is, oh yeah, things didn't go perfect. Cool, you're the same as everybody else because things don't go perfect in life. And you have no choice but to figure out the route you're going to now take.
Well, what was your childhood like?
It's pretty normal. I mean, it was pretty normal. I grew up in both my parents were school teachers. I was a little rebellious kid. I got very into music when I was a kid. I liked hardcore music. You know, obviously my favorite band of all time was Black Sabbath, still is Black Sabbath. That was my, you know, that was the first music that I heard. I kind of went from the Beatles and, you know, okay, the Beatles, and you think, okay, the Beatles, this sounds good to me. This sounds like, oh, this is fun. And then the first time I heard Black Sabbath, I was like, oh, this is what was in my head. This is what was in my head. And then from there, that it kind of opened up my mind to the rest of music. And at that time, you know, Black Sabbath, closely related to Motorhead. Again, this is just in terms of the threads that you could follow. Back when you had to go to a record store to follow the threads. And then eventually you get in, for me, I eventually got into hardcore, grew up on the East Coast, had the access to go to New York City and Boston on trains, New York City on trains. And so I could see hardcore shows, and that's what I was into. And then I basically didn't like school, did fine, and I mean, I passed, but then left school, joined the Navy, and that was my life.
Huh. So. Did you know from a young age that like you wanted to go pursue a career in the military?
Yeah. I had, my mom showed me something a couple of years ago where I was in, you know, 5th grade or 4th grade or something. What do you want to do when you grow up? And I wrote soldier, you know, so yes, I knew that's what I wanted to do.
Right on. And but you play music as well, right?
That's a real stretch. I play guitar. I was always in bands growing up. You know, I played guitar, I played bass, I sang, I did everything. So, but yes, I can play guitar, I can play bass, but you know, there's a reason why I haven't cut a bunch of albums. I've been playing the same 3 chords for my whole life.
You know, as long as it sounds good, it doesn't matter, right? But you know, it's one thing to go into pursue a career in the military, and it's another thing to kind of hard charge the role of leader. What drew you to wanting to take on that role?
I was in a SEAL platoon with a bad leader, and this bad leader, we ended up having a mutiny. Like the troops went against the leader, and we had a mutiny, and he got fired. And the guy that came in to take his place was just the best guy ever. And when you're in a SEAL platoon, that's your whole world. And so with this bad leader in the platoon, everything was miserable. Everything sucked. And then this guy came in and took over his position, and now everything was awesome. And I remember watching this transition happening and saying to myself, if I can, one day I want to make the world awesome for 16 guys in a SEAL platoon. And that's when I decided I would try and go towards the leadership route in the SEAL teams.
Were there certain things that when you were in the SEALs that when you transitioned out, you kind of had to unlearn?
Maybe a little bit.
I mean, besides like killing people.
Yeah, maybe a little bit. You know, what's funny is
What's wrong with that if you have to?
Because I used to, you know, when you're talking to a SEAL platoon, every other word is fuck, fucking, fuck that. You know, it's just completely the worst language ever. And I would go home and I never swore in front of my wife and kids. And my buddies that would come to my house and you know, they might drop an F-bomb and, you know, my little kids would be like, and my wife would be, you know, giving them the hell and death stare. That foul language was used in her house. And so like, there was just like, okay, you switch it on. You don't act that way when you're home. And so I felt like whatever the things that are in the military that I did that were habits that aren't really that appropriate in the civilian sector was just like flip the switch. But for the most part, like from a leadership perspective, it's the same. You know, anybody that thinks a military leader is running around yelling and screaming at people and treating them like they're subhuman is an idiot. And if you treat people like that in the military, you're going to be a terrible leader and you won't make it very far. And so you treat people, and I treated people, whether they were above me in the chain of command or equal to me or below me, I treated them all the same way. Whether I was talking to an admiral or I was talking to a new guy, I talked to him the same way. Treat them with respect, listen to what they have to say, and try and incorporate their thoughts into my own. And so doing that stuff was the same in the military as it is in the civilian sector. So yeah, it wasn't that crazy transition for me where, you know, even the idea of you're going 1,000,000 miles an hour in the military. Well, when I got out, I just hit the ground and started going 1,000,000 miles an hour in the civilian sector, you know, found a new mission, started talking about leadership, started teaching leadership, you know, just moved into that and went for it. And so it wasn't that crazy of a transition. Was it a heartbreaker to like leave the team area for the last time? Yeah, it sucked because that's 20 years of my life with my bros that I'm not going to have the direct contact with anymore. But I still lived in San Diego. I still see the guys. I still talk to the guys. And so it wasn't like that big of a deal. Yeah. And I also, you just have to move on. You just can't live in the past anymore. Like you did that job. That was a cool job. Cool. Now you get another job and start working on that one.
It's funny. One of my best friends, a guy named Tyler Gray. He's done a bunch of stuff in TV shows or whatever. He was in Delta and he got blown up and whatever. But he was saying the hardest. We lived together for a while, and he would tell me like the hardest thing wasn't his injury. It wasn't getting blown up. It wasn't dealing with PTSD. It was grieving the loss of his friends. That like every day he went to work and it was like his best friends hanging out, doing fun stuff, jumping out of planes, shooting, going to the range. And then all of a sudden it's just that switch went off and he was like, ugh. And he was in North Carolina, so he didn't want to hang out there too much longer after he got out. So, he said that grieving the loss of friendship was the toughest thing for him.
Actually, so I went to college in my military career. So I did 10 years in the SEAL teams, and then I had to go to college because to be an officer in the military, you have to have a degree. And so I went from being in SEAL platoons my whole adult life, and boom, now I was in college. And so now I'm in college, and it's me going to college classes, and then I come home and my wife, and we had one kid at the time. And after like 3 months, I came home and my wife had made dinner or something, and I made some like comment about what she'd made, ragging on my wife, like, oh, you know, something about the chicken being dry. I was like, oh, can you do me a favor and just bring me a gallon of water so I can get this down? And she comes out with a glass of water and she says, you know, I'm not in the teams. And I was like, oh, she's 100% right. The thing that you're talking about, which is seeing your buddies all day and hanging out and making fun of each other and tearing at their weaknesses, and like that's the funnest day-to-day interactions that you can have. And all of a sudden, overnight, it was gone from me. And so I'm looking around, where do I throw these barbs? Oh, this woman that I live with, who I've barely been around because I'm in the SEAL teams. Here I am. That's that. I can have that fun with her. No.
Yeah.
So there is a good example of something that I had to leave in the teams and not bring home. My wife did not want to be the target of, constant ridicule and fun making, because that's not the way you do a good job with the marriage. And eventually, just like I'm sure we all tease our wives and have fun, but it's next level in a SEAL platoon.
Yeah, my wife's...
I would have loved it there then.
Oh, you did the roasting?
I would have killed everybody. I love roasting.
Yeah, it's a great environment for that.
I was listening to it before you came on. I was doing my Jocko research, and I was listening to you on Rogan, and you were talking about discipline equals freedom. Do you ever get burnt out from discipline?
Sure.
What does that look like for you?
No factor. Burnt out doesn't matter. Still doing it.
Still doing it?
Yeah, it's like
you just push through it?
It's like feel burnt out. Feel burnt. I'm super burnt out. Cool. Whatever. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
Just keep doing it.
How did you discover jiu-jitsu?
I was on my first deployment in the SEAL teams. I showed up in Guam on deployment, 1992, 1993, and this old Master Chief, skinny old Master Chief, comes walking when he was probably like at least 38 at the time, but I'm looking at him like he's an old guy. He comes into my platoon and says, "Who here wants to learn how to fight?" And I'm like, I don't know what this skinny old man thinks he's going to teach me, but I put my hand up, and he invited me and a couple other guys to the judo club. They had a judo club there to train. And this guy's name is Steve Bailey, who's a Master Chief, awesome guy. And he had been training with the Gracies in Torrance. And he was probably like the equivalent of a high-level white belt. And he lined us up and just tapped us out. I mean, this is pre-UFC. That's no crazy. One knows anything. And so no one even understands what's happening at all.
Just flailing on the ground.
We don't know anything.
They're giving arms. They're
like
giving
right
necks,
now, you
everything.
grab some random person on the street. They've watched the UFC. They know what the guard is. They know what the mount is.
They do.
They know those things. They probably know rear naked choke. They probably know arm lock. We did not understand anything. And so he just lined us up and just tapped us all out over and over again. And I thought to myself, whatever freaking magic it is that this motherfucker knows, I am going to learn it. And so started training with him all the time. Again, he's a great guy, and he was like a stud at Muay Thai, just a great guy, and was giving us knowledge. He wasn't one of these people that was like, I have a secret, you can't have it. No, he was trying to get us better. Yeah. And then I came home from that deployment, and that's why when I watched the first UFC, people were, oh, well, what do you think is going to happen? I know 100% what's going to happen. That skinny guy from Brazil named Royce, he's going to win, and he sure enough, he did. And then eventually another friend of mine that was with that group of new guys in the SEAL teams, a guy named Jeff Higgs, he went in, when we got back to San Diego, he found a place to train, this guy, Fabio Santos, and he started training all the time with Fabio. And then after he trained for a pretty decent amount of time, I want to say it was like a couple of years, because I was in another SEAL platoon, and there was just it wasn't like jiu-jitsu now where you can just Google jiu-jitsu near me and it says, yes, 0.3 miles, there's a jiu-jitsu
8 of them.
This was an unknown thing. And so Jeff comes to my apartment and he's like, hey, do you want to train? And I was like, cool, let's go. And so we go across the street to this park, and in the grass, he submits me 20 times. And I'm like, bro. And he goes, yeah, I found a place where we can do this. And I'm like, where? And I went down the next day to Fabio Santos and signed up for unlimited classes and trained until this day.
He's still down now. Red white, right? I think he's a red white.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, he's still down there in San Diego, right?
Yep.
He's been there forever, huh?
He's been there forever. Yep.
I mean, it's crazy. You see these guys that still have, these businesses have been forever. I mean, it's crazy, because our teacher is a fifth, and then our main is a corral in Santa Monica, Renato Magno. But it's crazy to get that knowledge, Still, when he comes to class and does the seminars, it's like, focus, do this, focus, do that, focus. I mean, it's all that Brazilian way, which I like, because it's kind of the way I came up, and it's great to be focused that way, because our coach is very old school with the focus and, very martial arts. I kind of left 10 Planet because I didn't really like, the stories and stuff. Like, I wanted that martial arts thing where there was a sign and you're quiet when you come to class, and, these are the things that you do, and you do your drills. Our coach is very hardcore, like,
But it's so he's kind of old school in the way where everything's unspoken, where he's like, figure it out. No one is going to sit here and explain it to you. Like, it's like, you're either going to figure it out or you're not. And it's not my job to tell you if you're figuring it out or not, but just, fall in line kind of thing.
Yeah, it's interesting because there's such a wide array of what a jiu-jitsu school can be like.
Yeah.
Sure. Everything from like the very strict traditional jiu-jitsu all the way to not even called jiu-jitsu anymore, like whether
grappling.
Whether it's submission grappling, and you've got everything in between. And it really depends, because a lot of times people talk about people asking me questions. One of the main questions that people ask me is, what school should I go to? And the first thing I tell them is, get out Google Maps, put where you live and where you work, and which one is close, because proximity is the highest weighted thing. Like, if you have 5 schools to choose from, choose the one that's closest to you. Now you should visit the closest 3, and you go to one as a traditional place, and we're wearing a gi, and you're bowing in and you're bowing out. Dude, I love that. Okay, cool. You found your home. Or, dude, this guy was like really strict and we had to call him, master. I'm not doing that. Sounds crazy to me. Cool. Try this other one. And then you go to some place where they're like, oh, cool. Well, what's the uniform? Whatever you want to wear. Okay, cool. And that fits your personality? Cool, go there. So there's definitely some personality that you want to match your own personality to the school you end up at. Yeah. Just like you, going from 10th Planet, which is very open-minded.
Very open-minded.
Very open-minded.
I was with Eddie for years. Yeah, very open-minded.
And you go to a very traditional school where it's like, hey, this is what we're doing.
Yeah, I mean,
then you got to find out what fits your personality, what you like, and what's your vibe at the time. Because some people, they want to compete. Some people, they want a hobby. Some people,
absolutely,
they want to become a teacher. Like, there's different goals that you might have. You got to figure out what your goals are.
How do you run things at your gym? Are you kind of loose, or are you guys very competition focused?
We're loose and competition focused.
Okay.
So a little bit of both.
Yeah.
But one thing that, here's something that I had to tell instructors early on, our instructors, was, hey, someone shows up late for class, like, you can't come in the class. Which to me, no. These are people that have jobs, that have families, that have kids. Like, they're going to be late for class. And that's the way it is. They want to train jiu-jitsu. Come train jiu-jitsu. You show up 10 minutes late because of traffic or whatever, it's like all good. But very, try and be very open-minded. Gi, no gi. We try and just grapple.
Yeah.
And do jiu-jitsu.
It's fun.
Yeah.
It's the best thing ever.
Is awesome. Yeah.
I mean, my personal opinion, doing it for a long time, I do think it's a little watered down. I mean, I came up through the belt system that you never heard people asking for a stripe or anything else. And like, do you see that at your school? Do you hear that at your school, that people are asking, hey, how long is it to this, or how long is it to that? Or, because I know when I came up, that is taboo. That wouldn't even come through my mouth. I would never even say that.
Yeah, I've never heard anyone say that before.
Good. They're not gonna say it to you.
Yeah.
We had a friend.
They're not gonna say it to the boogeyman either.
Won't say his name, but he pre-bought a belt before he'd been given it, and we were.
You know what I told him? I don't even want to see it, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even want to look at it. Like, I have anxiety looking at it. Like, don't even show it to me, because it's like, when he puts the belt, like, I'm staying until I bought. Like, it's strange. Right?
Yeah. Some people are a little bit more motivated by that kind of thing, and I was never that into the the belt thing very much. Yeah. I love to train jiu-jitsu and roll, and So for me, that was always the funnest part about it. And, you know, as far as getting watered down, I think it's just so awesomely popular. And
It's so popular
There's
now.
a bunch of reasons why I think it's getting popular. One of them obviously being the UFC. The fact that they're finding out a lot about CTE and brain damage. And, you know, if you want your kid to be a fighter, 30 years ago, you take him to a boxing club and you teach him how to box. But nowadays, parents are a little bit more like, I don't know if I want my kid getting punched in the head a bunch. And, you know, when my son was a kid, you know, he was sparring Muay Thai as a little kid. I wouldn't do that now, but we didn't know any better. And so I think that's why you can grapple, as we know, you can train at 100% every single day. And that is really cool.
Yep.
Do you think competing makes someone in jiu-jitsu more mentally strong? Someone who does compete a lot.
Yeah, competition is really good because you're going against someone that you haven't ever gone against before. So they're going to possibly find some holes in your game. We all know that, you know, you and I roll together every single day. We're very comfortable with it. You're also going to be in front of a bunch of people, so you're going to be vulnerable, exposed, and you might get tapped out. And, you know, I remember a long time ago, you know, somebody told me, you know, one of my friends that I trained with was like, you know, one day I'm going to get you. And I was like, yeah, man, jiu-jitsu works. Like, get a move on me. Jiu-jitsu works. Like, it's no surprise. You catch someone in jiu-jitsu. If you get me in an arm lock correctly, I'm going to tap, or I'm going to have my arm broken. I'm going to tap because I want to keep training. So to say that you're going to get someone or that you got, like, yeah, of course. That's why we all train jiu-jitsu. You train jiu-jitsu because it's awesome, because it works. We're not training things that don't work.
Yeah. It's like I don't have any ego about what belt taps me.
It's true.
Because I'm always like,
You're old school.
I got tapped by a white belt the other day. I mean, this guy was a D1 wrestler, and he came with the heat. Yeah. And it was one of those things where when it was done, I was like, dude, awesome job, high five. Like, I was stoked that he's a white belt. He'd been training for 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And I look at it like, dude, like, yes,
Yeah.
jiu-jitsu works.
Yeah, jiu-jitsu works, and 6 weeks of jiu-jitsu combined with D1 wrestling is a very potent thing. Yes. And that's why it's great to see wrestling getting more and more popular as well.
Absolutely. So I had an interesting thing happen. So I was a reserve cop for a long time as well, and, you know, I did uniform patrol for a minute, and then some plainclothes narcotic stuff, although it wasn't I couldn't hide that well. But I had this interesting experience the other day. It was Saturday. I was driving to jiu-jitsu. It was early in the morning, and I see all these cars like parked up like on the sidewalk and, you know, blocking the street. And it was like clearly like I was like, oh, there's been a bad accident. So I slow down and I look over to my left and I see this young kid beating the piss out of this dude, just like full mount, just going off. And then I look and I see all these car windows have their windshields busted in. So I jump out to be like, all right, what's going on here? And this kid who's just beating up this homeless guy was like, this guy was throwing bricks at all our windows and busted up my window, da-da-da. Well, I try and like restrain, you know, I'm like, all right, well, and then I see this like ADT security guy come up, try and cuff him because someone had called the cops.
Try and cuff which guy?
The homeless guy who'd been throwing bricks, but he couldn't get the cuffs on. He was like, so I end up just like pinning the guy's legs and then securing the cuffs on him. But it was such a apparent moment where I was like, oh, this ADT guy has never actually put a pair of cuffs on anyone, nor does he know how to just do the basic kind of mount.
And obviously we see this all the time with jiu-jitsu, right? We see a lot of these black belts, and you see on Instagram and YouTube guys jumping in. Do you think that's a smart thing to do?
Well, there's a lot of things that go really, really bad in these situations. It sounds like in this particular scenario, you know, you stepped out to assess what was happening, right? Because one thing that happens that you have to be very careful of in these types of environments is once you are engaged with someone, you are no longer, most people are no longer aware of everything else that's happening. And so you start grappling with someone or fighting with someone, you don't know what else is happening. You lose awareness. And so it's very problematic. So, generally speaking, when I see this type of scenario happening, I don't move towards it. I actually take a step back and start assessing what else is going on here. If this guy was throwing bricks, well, who else is with him and what's he doing? And so there's a lot of things that if you're not careful, you can get blindsided by the scenario. So it's very important, in my opinion, to try and avoid actually engaging in a fight if you can, because there's a lot of things that can go wrong, and a lot of things go wrong because you've lost the rest of the situational awareness. Now, listen, if this guy is about to kill somebody, or there's a scenario that you have to do something immediately, okay, but you got to recognize what the risks are when you do that, and oftentimes, how do you truly neutralize this alleged threat that you're seeing when you haven't seen if the guy's going to pull a knife out, if the guy's going to pull a gun out? Like, we don't know what's happening. So there's a lot of unknowns. I don't like to enter into situations that there's that many unknowns. Yeah. So generally speaking, as much as you can avoid these actually fighting someone, you should avoid it.
Yeah. No, I agree.
And I agree with them. Like my thought process is, if it's a lady, if it's a lady, kids, elderly, two guys, I don't really care.
Yeah, and then just from that perspective, just make sure that, now you're talking about, generally speaking, you're probably dealing with a domestic violence situation. Yeah. So now you're introducing yourself into a situation that is going to be extremely emotional and extremely volatile, and you think that this guy is beating up this girl. He's beating up that girl because his emotions are through the roof. So now you're contending with something that is just be careful. Even in that situation, you've got to really think about what you're doing.
I mean, as we go to law enforcement, so I'm a reserve, and I teach arrest and control to the department, and I last about, it's up in northern Nevada, and it's lasts about not long because people just don't like the ground, and especially law enforcement people, they feel very uncomfortable, which is, that's why they should be doing that. I mean, you probably have a lot of law enforcement officers, probably San Diego Sheriff. And how are you seeing that evolved as far as people training, the more of the knowledge compared to 10 years ago?
Oh, it's definitely getting better. It needs to be, I wish it was mandatory. Yeah. By mandatory training, it doesn't mean, hey, when you go through the academy, you get 4 days of defensive tactics where you learn 2 jiu-jitsu moves. Like, that's not how you prepare. In fact, we had this whole thing going through in the SEAL teams. We had various systems for combatives. And one of the things that I always said was, there's no 4-day or 6-day or 2-week system that you learn and now you're good to go. Mm. That's not, and I remember in meetings saying, you're in the teams for 20 years. Like, you should be training that whole time and you'll be getting better that whole time. You can't expect someone to go through a 4-week course and now they're ready for whatever might unfold. Why would you do that? You just should train all the time. You should continually train, and you'll be just a little bit better than if you didn't train yesterday and the day before and the day before. So, yeah, I always beg and plead with law enforcement to train jiu-jitsu, and it will help them in every aspect of what they're doing. No doubt about it.
You know where I see it even less, because I know, Jack's parents, need that extra security. These security companies, none of these guys train. They're like, oh, I was in the military, right? And it's like, okay, was there wrestling? Was there jiu-jitsu?
Yeah, I mean, I like that. That's, for me, it's like whenever they have people around, I'm like, what's the experience in combatives? Like, where are they at? Oh, they got a CCW. I'm like, I don't want someone shooting someone if they can't, a rowdy fan. It's like, no, that person doesn't deserve to get shot. Like.
Yep. And this is something I used to get asked, about, once again, going back to my military career. Well, in the military, why would you need to do hand-to-hand combat when you got a primary weapon, you got a secondary weapon, you got 2 knives on you? Well, what are you going to be doing, getting hands on someone? It's like, oh, you go into a building to capture or kill a terrorist. Yep. The building is not empty. There's other people in that building, and when you enter a room and there's some man, woman, child that's unarmed, you still have to contend with them. And you're not doing it by shooting them. You have to get control of them, de-escalate the situation. You do that all the time. In fact, that happens a lot more often than you shoot, because you're shooting someone that's, has a weapon and is doing something with that weapon that you deem as hostile intent. That's the person getting shot. Everybody else in that building is getting detained. Yeah. How do you detain someone? You have to put hands on and you have to get control over them. And that's where knowing how to grapple is very important, because even striking, you strike someone, do you have control over them?
Oh, well, if they get knocked out, maybe, but
the only time is if you knock them out.
Yeah.
Which is literally impossible.
Which is very, very difficult.
Very difficult.
So thinking and relying on, it's like when you see a UFC fighter going, I'm going to knock him out. Bro, bet against that guy. Because you can try and knock him out, but what are the chances of that? If that's your game plan is to knock someone out, that's not a good game plan.
Especially, I don't know if Jocko saw, and I didn't want to see the Ukrainian people, the soldiers and the Russian soldiers. I don't know if Jocko saw them fighting with the knives.
Did you ever see that footage?
No.
The drone footage? It was the knife fight.
Oh, yes, I did.
Oh, dude.
I did.
That was so brutal, and it's one of those things where I
couldn't see it. I didn't want to see it.
I was watching it. I'm like, if either one of those guys had 5 minutes of jiu-jitsu,
how crazy
the
is that?
outcome would have been different. Yeah. And then it was wild. Because I tracked that story. They found this wild story. They have this Russian guy hand-to-hand combat with this Ukrainian soldier. He ends up stabbing the Ukrainian soldier to death over 4.5 minutes. He leaves. The Ukrainians sent 3 more dudes to track because they followed him with a drone. He killed the 3 other Ukrainians that they sent after him. And then a couple weeks later, I saw him being interviewed on there was a clip. He was being interviewed on Russian TV. And the guy was so, you could see he was so fucked up from it. He was so I feel so bad about what happened. I just wanted to come home. I just did it all because I wanted to come home. And it was so weird and just just the whole thing was just gnarly.
It's a new dynamic of war footage we're getting.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, what's your thoughts on the some of the stuff you're seeing out of Ukraine, the development of combat now, where it's the kings of the battlefield of video gamers essentially with drones.
Yeah, and this was so in the beginning of the war, I thought to myself, I was thinking that Ukraine would fight a guerrilla war and not stand and fight and just do guerrilla warfare tactics, and I was surprised when they didn't, and they got in these, trench warfare against the Russians. The Russians is attrition warfare. The Russians are going to win. They have more ammunition. They'll make more ammunition. They have more people and better supply, right? So eventually they're just going to wear them down in a war of attrition. So it didn't make sense to me. And I often wondered why the Ukrainians were doing that. And I kept expecting them to fight more of a guerrilla warfare, unconventional war. But then they just completely skipped that level to this mission that they just did where they took out all the strategic bombers. That's just skipping a whole level of unconventional warfare and going to this new level of unconventional warfare, which is we're not even really attacking the troops that are fighting us. We're attacking because they took out that bridge too. We're attacking your infrastructure.
Yeah, deep infrastructure.
Deep infrastructure.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's definitely.
It's interesting to see the evolution with this, and just from my perspective, just spectating, you're like, what is
Yeah, it's a new warfare, and it's definitely.
And then Israel just did the same game plan.
Yep, same game plan.
Yeah, I was sat back. I was like, I wonder who gave both of them the same idea the same month.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Going back a little bit, but seeing how war is progressing and everything is being filmed with drones, guys with helmet cams, filming it on their phones. Do you think that there's a level of novelty attached to it now because it seems like it's about the content to a degree?
I think there's some level of desensitization that's happening right now, but at the same time, it's even now, it's difficult for people that watch this stuff to view those soldiers as people. And I can tell you why. I can make that statement because how many shares do these videos have? Like millions of shares, right? And if that was one of your family members getting butchered, would you share that?
God, no.
Exactly. So we don't look at these soldiers that are dying, civilians and the civilian populace and the world doesn't comprehend that those are people. Yeah. And so there's, even when you see that, and look, not everyone, like you just said, you couldn't watch it, right? So you're a person that's maybe a little more empathetic, yes, and you say, I don't even want to see that, right? Yep. But a lot of people go, oh, cool knife fight, share it with their friend. They don't think, hey, this is a person that is losing their life right now and bleeding out on the battlefield, suffering and dying, and their dreams are destroyed, and their family is going to be forever distraught and traumatized by this. They don't think about any of that. So
yeah, so it's funny. Like as you're talking, I'm remembering this one video I saw. It was like, you know, the drone, whatever, the FPV drone hits this Russian he was in a, looks like he was in a trench or a crater, and it takes both his legs off, and he rolls out, and he just kind of looks up, sees it, and he just kind of lays back, and you just see this guy just go like, all right, that's it. And it was just so like, I don't know, it like just burned in my head. And it's, you can't unsee that shit. And I just felt like it was that exactly what you're saying. Like, fuck, that was some guy's, you know, that was a son, that was a brother, a father, or whatever. And it's very strange.
But what you have is just human curiosity. And the other thing that's interesting is, you know, I have had a bunch of people on my podcast that have been in very significant wars, including I had a guy named Dean Ladd who was a Marine in World War II who did the Pacific campaign, and he was getting ready to go into Tarawa. And I was asking him, you know, as they're getting ready to go into Tarawa, the intel is, you know, this is the most heavily fortified frontal assault that has ever taken place in history. They're getting briefed, hey, when Marines get hit, when your fellow Marines get hit on the assault, leave them, because we have to take this. So you already know what's going to happen. And I asked Dean Ladd, unfortunately he passed away recently, but I said, you know, were you nervous? Were you scared? And just like, he says, no, it always happens to the other guy. And that is a very common feeling for a young military personnel, myself included, is like, oh, nothing will happen to me. You know, that happens to the other guy. So when people watch these videos, it's literally happening to someone else, someone that they don't know, someone that they detach themselves from as even being a human being. And it's just some soldier, some unnamed soldier that in their mind doesn't have a family, doesn't have any dreams, is doing what he wants to be doing. And that's just not true.
Yeah.
So I think it's desensitizing, and it's going to keep getting more and more eyeballs on war.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, when we think about testing people, and again, things happen, you know, you're on a PJ with someone and it goes down in the middle of nowhere and everyone's, you know, people haven't gotten hurt, right? Like, how do you get people out of there? Like, you know, you hear with someone that's young today and they might be 20, 25. Like, how would you focus people to be like, this is what we're doing, this is our plan, and this is how we're getting out of here? Like, how would you focus on that? You know, because that's probably mentally very tough on somebody. Like, oh, you know, we have no food, we have no nothing, and you don't have a satellite phone, you know. So I'm interested in that. Does that take in your SEAL training to do that?
Well, certainly, you know, luckily for me, I've been through SEAL training and, you know, survival training and those types of things. You go through it, and just being in the field, you know, when you go in the field a lot, you learn about how to live out there. So if you were in a situation like that from the leadership perspective, you know, there's a thing that I talk about when it comes to assuming a leadership role in a situation like that. What I generally advise people to do is you want to step up into a leadership role when there's a leadership vacuum. So no one is stepping up. And you want to give that leadership vacuum enough time so that everyone kind of recognizes that there's a leadership vacuum. Because if we, the three of us, crash and we get out of the aircraft and I start going, all right, this is what we're going to do. You guys, even though we just crashed, and even though you might look at me as the expert because I have the military background, you would still be like, well, why would... So instead of just being like coming out barking orders, it'd be like, wait, how are we doing? Maybe Jack has the idea, right? So maybe we say, Jack goes, hey, I've been in this area before. I know exactly where this ravine leads. It's going to take us down to the, okay, cool. Like, all right, sounds good. Or maybe you step up and you say, hey, before we left, I saw that there was aircraft flying overhead. I think we can put out a smoke signal. So I don't know. But if both of you are big eyes and nervous and scared and you're looking at me, cool. Now it's time for me to go, oh, hey, listen up, gents. Here's what's happening. Boom. And I can start laying out a plan. So letting a little bit of time, and this is not just in a survival situation. This is in any situation. This is in a meeting.
Yes.
This is in any situation where if you step up and start to take lead, I'll support you. I want to support you. If you step up and start to take lead, I'll support you. But if no one steps up, I'll give it enough time so that everyone recognizes that we have a little hesitation, and then I might step up and start to take leadership.
Interesting. I think that's a great takeaway. Kind of wait for people to see. The first thing that pops to my mind is, you ever get on a Zoom meeting when there's a bunch of people on a Zoom meeting and everyone's just waiting for someone to start the conversation? Yep. It's that exact moment. That's it. I mean, just in normal non-plane crash or World War III scenario, it's like, all right, who's talking first? Who's leading this?
If your Zoom thing pops up and you start, hey guys, I want to get this thing kicked off. Well, that's not a good move, right? But if you give it, and this could be literally 3 seconds. Everyone looks around. Hey guys, Jack here. Just want to get this thing kicked off. Does anyone have anything they want to start with? Boom. And all of a sudden we're rolling.
I used to wake up angry, just naturally pissed off.
Now he drinks Daybreak. It's a coffee blend of ours.
It's got notes of almond butter, vanilla, and black tea vibes.
Which sounds fake, but it's not. It's just really good coffee.
Daybreak makes you a morning person without changing your personality.
It's 100% Arabica. It's 100% worth it. And it 100% helps you cope with your kids in the morning. Available online at drinkcaveman.com. Discount and link is in the bio below.
We should also start me choking him out on camera like this, see if he could.
That's actually really, really good.
I think so.
Bro, you're never getting out. You big baby. Baby, you try not to die. You will die. Come on, bro. Come on, bro. I got you. Oh, Jesus Christ. Oh, my God. My glasses. My glasses.
How many times you competed?
Oh, I don't know.
40? 50?
I have no idea.
Okay.
But, well, back in the day, we competed all the time.
Yeah.
All these, in the beginning of all these tournaments, well, I'm sure you were at the same
Grappler's
ones.
Quest.
Grappler's
I've done so
Quest,
many times Grappler's
Joe
Quest.
Moreira's thing,
Oh, my God,
the
all of
Gracie
them.
Challenge, yeah.
I'm the only black belt in the academy. I just jump in now. Like I sign up and jump in. All IBJJFs I've done. I mean, I've competed, I don't know, 50, 60, 70 times. And Jack's like, it's
For
so
being
weird.
a soft Upper West Side guy, he's, I'm
the weird guy. And Jack will tell you, I like feeling the pain of being in a bad situation and trying to get out. It's very, to me, I want to be in the worst situations.
Yeah.
In jiu-jitsu.
But that's because you're a slight masochist. He likes it when the guys kind of smell, because he thinks it prepares him for the street.
I like when the
true.
guys smell. It does it like sometimes we have very smelly guys, and I don't mind smells. I don't.
Yeah, I mean, there's a limit to that, is there not? Because I mean,
This guy,
I don't
with
care.
me, there is. There's a couple guys where I'm like,
Yeah,
not
there's-
today,
there's
bro.
people- that
The better gamey, I don't care about it. And I shower twice, 3 times a day. If they're real gamey, I don't care.
yeah, I've had some people that were like straight up offensive.
Yeah. Oh, there's a guy.
Have you never had somebody that trained that was like, hey, dude, you might want to hit that shower before we roll, or something like that?
Yeah, you're just blunt with it.
Sometimes it's a one-off, sometimes occasionally the dude's gonna stink, but yeah,
But it doesn't bother me. And then we have these white belt and blue belt spazzes that punch you in the face and bleeding and doing all that stuff. I'm like, dude, come on, man. I mean, that's just so ridiculous. They look at the belt and they want to come for it. They want to try to destroy you. Do you still see that with you? Like people like coming to the gym and they're trying to like do stupid things, grab your ankles, do things like.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of the deal.
Yeah.
But you know, I train with like a core group of guys that
Yeah.
are all, you know, like we all
Lister,
been training together
Lister.
for a long time. Yeah.
Melissa taught you a lot of ankle locks and stuff.
Yeah.
The best.
Yeah. Well, he's definitely the pioneer of that activity for sure.
Mr. King of the Cage.
Yes, he was king of the cage.
What a King of the Cage picture he had with the girl. He was a handsome devil. You ever see that picture with that girl back in the day?
Probably.
Dude, he's like huge like this with this girl. Like, I think when he just won the belt.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't even know how many years that is. I mean,
Yeah, that was in the.
Well, King of the Cage has been gone for what, 15 years?
That was probably the late '90s, early 2000s.
That's my only regret. I always wanted to fight in King of the Cage.
Really?
Yeah.
I fought in Thailand.
Did you?
Yeah, did a Muay
That's
Thai
a
fight.
Mayor
Muay
Can
Thai
or no?
fight.
Did a Muay Thai fight in Thailand.
Nice.
And
How'd you fare?
It was kind of a weird situation. Like, I was 19. I was still kind of like figuring shit out. I wasn't, you know, I'd only been training for a few weeks, and it was like, hey, you want to fight? Yeah, whatever. They put me up against this old guy. I won, but he was a very old man. So
It was a tomato can. It was a tomato
It was
can.
basically, it was a glorified smoker.
Yeah.
But then I did a couple boxing matches as well. I just don't like getting hit in the face.
That's
Getting hit in the face sucks. And checking kicks.
yeah. If you don't like getting hit, then
If you don't like getting hit,
striking is not a good
No, it's not.
thing for you.
And Jocko, you're coming out to England for the final Aussie show.
Yes, and I cannot tell you how much that means to me. It's the band I grew up with, the soundtrack of my life, and you know, been to see him a bunch of times, and now I get to see the final show.
And we can bring our geese. Like he said, Maynard's going to be there. We can bring our geese
Yeah,
over there.
should we bring our geese to? Yeah.
Can we really roll?
I mean, listen, if we
I mean,
find
I don't
some-
train on vacation ever. You don't, do you?
Well, I've honestly
my
have
gal, I'm
not
not
done a
doing it.
trip like this in a very long time.
Me too. I am
Like-
not. I'm all for my lady.
Like when you texted me that, the early invite, bro, I was like, this is 100% happening. And I told my wife, I was like, we're 100% going to England. And I haven't been to England, and my wife's a Brit.
Oh, wow, I didn't know your wife's
Yeah,
British.
my wife's a Brit. And so we're going to go see her family and stuff and see some of her friends in London. But I haven't been there in I don't know, like 5 years, 10 years, like a very long time.
Yeah.
Because I never take breaks. I never do anything like this.
Wow.
So for me,
This is special.
This is a huge thing for me. And like I said, I've seen Black Sabbath I think 5 or 6 times at this point. The first Ozfest, I saw him in Singapore, and then I saw him in Long Island. I think the one that you were
Jones
at.
Beach. Yep.
And my wife was 9 months pregnant with our first daughter.
Holy cow.
And she was sitting there going, "Why did I marry you?" And and then
That's what
I
my
saw
girl says.
the last tour. I for whatever reason couldn't make the LA show, but I went to Vegas with my son, who's a huge
Nice.
Black Sabbath fan, and so for me, I thought that was the last time. And you sent me that text, and I'm like, oh, that was not the last time. So the final show.
Wait, do we get to tell the story of how you and I got connected?
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah.
Please tell the story. Please tell the story.
So-
he told me the story. This is great.
Many years ago, I saw you posted something, and I've been following you, like, you know, I saw you on Rogan or whatever, and I saw you posted something and talking about how you had a Gibson SG, a Toni Iommi, you know, SG model. It's a guitar for people that don't know, and you were a huge Sabbath fan, and it was right when this Sabbath box set came out. And I messaged you, and I was like, hey, I've got one of these box sets if you want it. But then I never heard anything. And I was like, oh, you know, it's Jocko. He's running all over the world.
Which, just so everyone knows, you know, sending me a DM on Instagram, I'm not
Totally.
There's a lot of them, and I can't
Yeah.
see them all.
And so about a year and a half, 2 years later, Andy Stumpf and I were doing the SIG Hunter Games challenge, and we got paired up together. And I was like, hey, dude, you know Jocko? And he's like, yeah, he's like one of my best friends. And I was like, will you let him know that I had this whole box set thing for him, and he never got back to me? And Andy just started like fucking with you. And yeah, and that's how we connected. And then, yeah.
So he sends me now I respond. He says, hey, you know, it's good to meet you. I had sent you a DM a while ago. I had something for you. And I was like, oh, cool. And then he says, It's a whatever, one of a kind custom Toni Iommi SG. And I mean, I saw that message and I was like, oh. and then he goes, no, I'm just kidding. It's a box set. And I go, cool. And then I kind of one-upped him because I sent him a picture of my 4 Toni Iommi custom Gibson SGs and 1 JD Toni Iommi custom SG.
Wow.
So like
You had the lineup.
Yeah. I was like, hey, bro, that would have been nice, but I'm good. You know, so
And you
that was
screw with
awesome.
him, huh?
Yeah, Andy's a good one like that. But yeah, but I ended up sending you all the vinyls, and you should
so
wait.
cool.
Bring one of them.
Will he sign it?
Your dad signed. Oh, we could probably get.
Bring one. Just bring one of them.
Check.
I got you. Don't worry.
Freaking epic. Yeah.
That's epic, dude. How about a poster? Can I take that poster upstairs?
I'll find out if you can take that
Yeah,
poster.
I would love that poster. Don't show it to Jocko.
I remember a camp a couple of years ago. You told me a funny story about running into Toni Iommi in Asia.
Oh, yeah. So I was in the Navy in a SEAL platoon on a ship. The ship pulls into Singapore. We go out to do what guys are going to do in a Liberty port, which is go out and get drunk, walk around, go to the bars. And I'm walking down the street and I see a giant banner by the Hard Rock Cafe that says Black Sabbath. And they're playing like the next night. And so I was in Singapore and I went and saw Black Sabbath. And because it's in Singapore, like they're not used, like I grew up in the pit, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going like, I go mental, right? But in Singapore, they're going to dance or what, they're going to like nod their heads or whatever, shake their hands, but they're not getting crazy. So it's open seating or whatever, general admission. So I'm just go right to the front and I'm 3 feet from Toni Iommi the whole night. And I'm yelling things like, and it's quiet in between songs, people like clap and then stop. And so I'm in there and there's probably 1,000 or 2,000 people. It's not a very big venue and it's quiet. And so I'm yelling, Birmingham is the holy city. And everyone can hear me. Like Toni Iommi's just looking at me because I'm only 4 feet from him. And he's looking at me kind of like smiling like, why is there this crazy white dude here in Singapore that clearly knows every lyric to every song and he's going nuts. And then the show ended and like, because I grew up going to concerts, I knew that there's a backstage somewhere and there's a back exit and that's where he's going to leave. And so I left and scrambled around and climbed over the fence and got to the backstage and saw the limo and was like, okay, here we go. And I just waited. And then Toni Iommi came out eventually and I shook his hand and I said, hey, it's an honor to meet you. I just want to say thank you for getting me through a lot of rough times when I was growing up with Black Sabbath. And he looked at me and gave me like a half smile and nodded his head. And he didn't say a word. And he didn't say a word the whole night, but he nodded his head, shook my hand, and then got in the limo.
Wow.
And I was like, yo. and I actually have photographs of it.
That's
I have photographs
amazing.
that I took. And
It's
so
so
yes,
it's
pretty
so
epic.
funny. Like hard rock shows in Asia, like they don't say a word.
Oh, that's my only one I've ever been to.
Yeah,
So is
it's
that the way it
wild.
is?
Yeah, like it's really quiet. There's no like they'll
It's
clap.
like the old Pride.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the old Pride.
Yeah,
They
I
don't
went
speak.
to a Pride fight in Tokyo and was amazed. You could hear a pin drop.
When did you go to Pride in Tokyo?
It was in 2001 or 2.
Because I went quite a few times as well.
Okay. For people that don't know, Pride was it was like its own thing in Asia, and it ended up merging with the UFC, right? Or
UFC
bought it.
Yep.
But it was essentially UFC, but not in an octagon. It was a big giant ring.
Yeah,
and it was gnarlier.
It had less rules.
Yeah, you could nut punch.
Yep. The first you could kick people and knee them when they were down.
Yeah.
And also the first round was 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like a 10-minute round and then a 5-minute round or something like
Yeah.
that. And there were some really good, really amazing fights. And they also weren't ever testing for steroids, so everyone was just juiced to the gills.
Yep. Oh god, so
it was
good.
chaos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was
See
fun.
Don
Who'd
Fry
you
and
do you
the
remember
Asian
like
guy?
what?
No.
You saw the guy punching each other. Who was that guy?
Not Sakamura. No,
I forget
was
his
it?
name, but I was there for Hoist versus Yoshida.
No way.
And it was the same card when Minotauro beat Bob Sapp after getting
Sapp.
absolutely pummeled for
Bob Sapp's one of
20
the biggest
minutes
human being I've ever seen in
and
my
then
entire
catches
life.
him in an arm lock. It was
How did he catch that
insane.
guy's arm in that arm lock?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I ended up being out all night in Roppongi with BJ Penn and
That must have been fun.
and Ensign, a guy. It was
It's an Inoue.
Yeah. Us, we were
Bro.
just raging in Roppongi.
I ended up with Hoist Gracie, Dean Lister, me at a karaoke joint with a bunch of Yakuza people.
Dude, that was literally. Wait, we were at a
Are you
place.
kidding me?
It was a
That's
karaoke
great.
place that had a button you could press, and the glass went all smoked out. Same thing, bunch of Yakuza guys.
Yes.
It was the craziest night.
Yes, it was a crazy
Yeah.
night. It was a crazy night and pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So there you go.
One last question before we hit the humor, because I want to hit him with some humor, see how he handles it. UFOs, yes or no? I'm a big sci-fi guy, by the way.
What do you mean yes or no?
Do you believe?
In UFOs?
Yes.
What am I supposed to be believing or not believing?
Believing
in?
that there's people from other planets coming to Earth, investigating.
I'm not sure. It doesn't seem likely, but I wouldn't rule it out.
How about you, Jack?
I think there's a few things going on. I think some of it is like our technology. I think a lot of it is our technology. I think there could be some.
Interesting.
I think there could be some more interdimensional stuff. Not necessarily things coming from other planets. I think stuff coming from different dimensions. Because just the
Wow.
yeah. Because
Wow.
like even if you're traveling at the speed of light, it's still going to take hundreds of years to get here from anywhere. Thousands of years. So I'm like, well, if there's
Black hole.
well, yeah, but if they're proving that there's different dimensions now, they think like there's like 9 or 10 that like mathematically they're like, no, there's, the equation works out. What if these things are just like blipping over to our, and then if you really want to get weird, we can start talking about that we might be in a video game. But I don't know if we're there yet. I think we might need some more Jocko Fuel and Nitro Caveman Coffee for that one.
I grew up in the woods in Connecticut, and there's like haunted areas.
Yeah.
And you could go there and you could get hyped up enough with your, when you're 8 years old,
Yeah.
with your friends, and you could get freaked the fuck out.
And a lot of it is just that. It's like you kind of get.
Did you catch any?
Dude, of course, saw some weird shit, man. Really weird shit. But like, I've had stuff like doors fly open, when like a room within a room where there's no draft, there's no AC, objects move off tables, stuff roll in a bowl rolling down a hallway, but like not in a straight line, kind of weaving around. Seen a lot of strange things. I think more to be revealed with the ghost stuff, and it's a lot, And the older I get, and the more psychedelic therapies I've done, the more I'm like, what is consciousness? What are we?
I haven't done any psychological therapies.
Yeah,
or
psychedelic?
Psychedelic therapies. Matter of fact, I actually haven't done any therapies of any kind. so-
Really?
yeah.
All right.
Oddly enough.
Okay. I'm gonna.
I'm always very curious about it.
Yeah.
It's time for some humor.
Are you gonna show Jocko the picture you did?
Take a look. See
And
if
it's
Jocko
actually
likes
kind of
it.
weird, but it works.
Well, yeah, now he's in Osbourne.
Hold on. Where did it go? Here it is. It's Jocko Willink.
That's disturbing.
Here we go.
I like the face, though.
It looks like the dude in The Wire.
It kind of
Oh,
does.
my
Yeah.
God. I love that. Oh, my God. I love it. I love it.
The scowl. All right, Ryan. Come on, light us up.
Who do you think would make it through a Navy SEALs? Andrew Huberman or Joe Rogan?
They could probably both make it through. To make it through SEAL training, you just have to be like an average high school athlete.
Okay.
And yeah,
Why in my mind do you have to be like super soldier forged in the the fires of Mordor to like make it through?
because a lot of people don't make it, but it's not because of their athleticism. It's because of their
Brain.
They don't really want to be there.
Yeah.
Would you ever grow your hair out for a bet? And what does it look like when it's grown out?
Just hair.
Hair.
Yeah.
Ever had long hair? Ever?
Not really.
Never, right? Always high and tight, right?
Well, no. The longest hair I had was maybe longer than Jack's, but
On top.
as a young SEAL, I had longer hair, and then as I moved up.
Well, don't
it's
they
just
say SEALs have
super
good
annoying.
hair?
Yeah, that's part of the part of the jam.
Part of the
right?
MO.
Part of the jam is good hair. Like, have you seen pictures of Andy with long hair?
I have seen pictures
like-
with Andy.
Yeah.
We got to get Andy on here.
Did he have a mullet?
No.
No, he just had long hair, long, beautiful hair.
Oh,
Yeah.
really?
He's,
Glowing.
he's kind of a beautiful guy, though. He's he's a pretty boy.
How's the closet look? Just jeans and Vans, right? And a t-shirt.
Yeah.
Really? No dress shoes?
Well, I have Origin boots.
Okay. But mostly, this is your outfit every day. Make it real simple.
I mean, I honestly just usually wear flip-flops, shorts, and a t-shirt.
Oh, you don't throw your back out with flip-flops all the time?
No, I wear flip-flops 90%.
Wow. You
of
must
the
have
time.
huge feet like tomahawk steaks.
They're not bad.
Okay. Have you ever cried in a movie?
Yeah, I can get pretty, some movies that, especially like war movies, seeing guys get killed in war movies can kind of get to me sometimes.
How do you think
Good
you
job with your humor questions, bro.
No, I haven't even started yet.
How do you think you would last at the Origin camp?
What's that?
I'm trying to get him to come to camp with me.
Oh, you can't
Do you
come.
think he'll last?
No.
Yeah, why wouldn't you go?
You know why? To be honest, it's like, like I'm at the stage, I don't feel like people trying to, destroy me and kill me. Like, I got to take a plane to Boston, then I got to drive to Maine. You know what I mean? I'm like one of those guys.
It's the cabin. I don't
you
think
know
he's
what
into
it
the
is,
cabin.
too?
This is a little uncomfortable.
You know what it is, to be honest? I don't know, the bedding might not be comfortable.
The bedding is not comfortable.
Listen.
Do you bring
Jack-
your own mattress?
Yeah, he does.
You don't? Okay.
Last time Jack went there, he had a hemorrhoid, a flu, and he threw his neck out for 5 months.
It's true.
Did you know that?
It's true.
Is that real?
Oh man, it was like no, it was the craziest.
You know he was teasing me? He goes like this, Jocko. He goes, "Oh, you're not gonna go. What a baby. I'm like, all right, buddy, I'm a baby. First day he got there, he was like, oh, my neck hurts. First time someone saw it was Jack Osbourne, they cranked his neck. That was number one. Number two, he started waking up with a little bit of a sniffle. And then all of a sudden, he got an award-winning flu on the way back to Boston. And then on the way there, he had to get Preparation H. He had a hemorrhoid, the worst one. He goes, dude, he was waddling.
It was bad.
Can you believe it? Must be from the shellfish, from the lobster roll.
That's why he's coming back this year.
That's why I am coming back. Are you going to be there this year?
Yeah.
All right, good. Yeah. It's,
Super stoked.
It is the best time.
It is the best.
I have so much
It's
fun.
freaking awesome.
And it's fun. My wife's always like, "Should you going again this year?" I'm like, "Yeah." You know why? Because it's the only vacation I can ever truly have.
Yep.
Because I'm alone. I'm hanging out. I'm doing jiu-jitsu. It's awesome. It's the best.
And he trains all day, which he loves it.
You want to talk about Jocko Fuel a little bit, because it's funny. It's we have a bit of a similar mindset with Caveman Coffee. You know, our whole thing is like clean energy. I think energy drinks have been full of so much poison for so long, and I know with Jocko Fuel, it's your thing is like, hey, it's a clean energy drink.
My bar is, I want my kids to drink it. That's the bar. So I wanted to make an energy drink that I would want my kids to drink. No artificial sweeteners in it. It means instead of putting 300 milligrams of caffeine, there's 95 milligrams of caffeine, just like a strong cup of coffee. No artificial colors. It's just good for you, and it gives you energy, and there's no crash. So that's what we did. You know, I guess very similar to Caveman Coffee.
What I like about coffee, it's clean, antioxidants, and, it's just clean energy. I mean, basically our nitro is Brazilian coffee and filtered water. And what you get is you don't get the crash, and it's a quality product. Jack's, an owner here, and it feels better.
It's that whole thing about when you're not genuine, when you're not genuinely invested in the work you do, it shows in some way. All right, Jocko, thank you so much for your time. Greatly appreciate it, and I'll see you in 2 weeks in Birmingham.
Yes, the
or
holy
London,
city.
either or. And for those of you who don't know, you can find Jocko basically everywhere. You're at Jocko.
At Jocko Willink.
Yep.
That's me.
And if you don't know who Jocko is, you're under a rock, and you probably won't even be listening to this. Anyway, thank you all.
Thanks.
Thanks, Jocko.
Booyaka Shah.
Thank you, Jocko.
Right on, fellas.
Trying Not to Die, powered by Caveman Coffee.